We'll give it just a few moments and then we'll begin.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, one more minute and we'll begin. We still have some members joining us. Again, please place your information in the chat box. And we'll just give it just a few more moments. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Booker, we are ready when you are.
Okay, very good. Assistant, see some individuals are signing in, but
Okay.
we'll start in just a second. We'll give
Yes, ma'am.
just give it a few more seconds for signing in. And thank you everyone for signing in as well. Okay. All right, it's 2:03 and we'll begin in respect for your time. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the South Carolina Military Credit Mobility Task Force. This is the Institutional Representatives Workgroup meeting. We're glad to see so many of you were able to find the time to join us. We are especially appreciative of our guest today, Dr. Dallas Fraser from the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education, Mr. Jason Jarrett, who's the Assistant Director of the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships and Veterans Affairs at Ball State University, and Allegra Fowler. Ms. Fowler is the Executive Director of the Center for Prior Learning and Recognition from Purdue Global University. We've had a number of discussions with these individuals over the past month or so, even more than that, and we're so glad that they've taken the time out to talk with us about their input and information that we can gather so that we can have some applicability towards our state and see if we do have some alignment. In addition, we're so glad that we have in-state expertise as well. Brandon Felder, registrar from Lander, and also Christy. And Christy, excuse me if I do not pronounce your name correctly. I have Schatzel, and again, I am so sorry. She's with the Technical College of the Low Country. We have, again, some input information that we would love for our in-state experts to share with us as well. This is a sharing group, as you know, so we invite your input as we go through. We'll have an opportunity to talk about the poll that we sent out and our next steps with this task force. Also, we'll share some dates that we'll have for a possible one-day convening. We'd love to see everyone face-to-face. We're also talking about possible training during this time. And then finally, we'll talk about our next working meeting. So that's our agenda. And again, we'd like to turn it over to Ms. Alfie Mincy. She'll facilitate our discussions. And again, welcome to our guests and also to our representatives. Alfie?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Woolfolk. As I mentioned earlier, we have a jam-packed day today, so we are right on time. And so, first of all, I would like to introduce you all to Mr. Dr. Dallas Kratzer. He's a senior fellow policy development with the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education. Dr. Kratzer will be sharing with us some veteran military-centric credit for prior learning implementation plan. So, Dr. Kratzer, you have the floor.
All right, thanks, Alfie. And you're always welcome to call me Dallas. It's much.
Okay, Dallas, I got you.
All right, so today I'm going to share with you a little information about a program on how you might be able to implement military credit for prior learning in your community. I go out for CAO, the Council on Adult and Experiential Learning, and the American Council on Education, and talk about military credit for prior learning. And one of the things I've seen over time is there's just not a lot of ideas or recommendations on how to implement a program. So a while back, I created this model that I'll share with you today. Hopefully you'll be able to glean some stuff out of this. You are welcome to use this in any way, shape, or form that you want. Just make the proper citation. That's the big part of it. And it is free to you to do this. So let's just kind of walk through this. At any time, if you have questions, please feel free to just put your hand up and ask away, or turn your mic on and make comments. All right, so let's move along. And my slides, there we go. So as you all know, there are different types of credit for prior learning out there. And at the middle of it is that military training and military occupation stuff. And a lot of folks have been exposed to the other sections, the transfer credit or assessed learning and such like that. But we still have challenges on that military credit and how to adopt it. So one of the things that I think we can do to help ourselves is to take all of these materials that we see from ACE and the Joint Service Transcript and the website and everything, and bring it together into a way to educate our staff and faculty on what military credit is all about. So the JST, the Joint Service Transcripts, are the primary tool that we use. The ACE guide helps to supplement what we're doing, but this implementation, I think, will help us with integration. So let's just walk through that and we'll talk about it. And as we do, I'm going to share a couple different documents, which these are some good ones. ACE did a wonderful job in 2015 when they put out the credit for prior learning, charting institutional practices. And this is where a lot of this work comes from and how it was built out. And then they've also got the toolkit for veteran-friendly institutions. You can get those out there. And from both of those documents came this idea of creating a plan. And the plan is a three-phased approach that will, you can integrate it anywhere from 12 to 24 months in time. Some of the folks who have used it try to do it in less time. You can do that depending on your climate and culture at your institution. ACE's pointed this out very clearly, that it's the organizational culture and structural preparedness to do military credit recommendations that are integral in the success of how your team will recognize credit for service members. In this three-phased approach, there are 5 particular stages, and I did use the ADDIE model intentionally because it resonates with faculty to outline these 5 stages, and it allows us to build this concept of both professional training, program design, student awareness, and then continuous improvement. I'm just going to walk through the stages a little bit at a time. In stage 1, it takes 2 to 3 months to stabilize or to develop the aspects associated with these 2 first elements, to design and determine if your campus is ready for military credit recommendations and how you might use it. Now, you all in South Carolina have got just a fantastic opportunity because of the groundwork that Woodfolk and Alfie have done in preparing you to do this. So you guys are ahead of the game in a lot of ways. And you would probably move through this pretty quickly in analyzing your culture on your campus, and then identifying some task force members, folks on your campus that will lead the charge. And then as you do that and you implement those things, then you move into that design phase, which allows you to make more awareness with your campus staff and faculty, because you've got 2 different competing groups here. First, faculty members do drive the bus when it comes to the recognition of ACE credit recommendations within their degree programs, as it should be, because faculty have the the responsibility to make sure that the depth, breadth, and rigor of the academic event, the training, the learning that goes on is maintained. And when ACE does an evaluation of military workplace learning, their goal is to maintain that same depth, breadth, and rigor because they are faculty members. We go out as a team. I've done 30 plus evaluations with ACE, ranging from the Navy band to drone pilots with the Air Force out in Nellis Air Force Base and everything in between, a lot of Army. And we always work to make sure that we align it with things that we would teach in our own classes. And we want to share that with our faculty members so that they're aware. And the way to do this is by, first of all, identifying some folks who are going to be ambassadors for the program, and then engaging champions within the different sections to work on this. So you want to identify a working group that will be the boots on ground, that will advocate within their duties of their areas of responsibility, but you want those ambassadors that are senior leaders in your organization that are also championing this cause, and then identifying some training requirements that need to happen. A couple of things that I think are really important in this design phase is to make sure that you get it on the books to teach classes like the CALE, assessing prior learning, the from the ground up with a military focus, which you can also attend those at the CALE conference. I am a CALE ambassador also. It's a great way to share information and to learn some of the latest things going on in the area. That's really how Allegra and I met quite some time back. And we've had some great collaboration in that time. And Alfie, we met there too, which was a great event. So if you get a chance, go to the CALE conference. You just learn so much. But get that training for your folks. It is a nationally recognized training in military credit application. In addition, I would also encourage you to look at the ACE training on the JST. Now, this is more staff focused. Your registrar, transfer services folks, veteran engagement personnel, your admissions folks, and it helps you to see how the JST is built and put together. That will give your faculty an understanding also of why this is important. So one class by ACE is how the JST is built. The second one is how assessments are done. So two good training opportunities. And then in phase two, you're actually going to build out your program, and you're going to conduct that training and have everything in place that you can launch into the very next part, the implementation of the CPL program across your institution, and build an awareness campaign that will engage potential students and current students in recognizing how you have, as a faculty and staff, have aligned their military training with degree completion, and that you're not going to use it just for elective credit, but that you've taken the time and gone from being military friendly to military ready to say, yes, we've aligned your training to our degree plans so that we can accelerate your degree completion. And most importantly here, and this is probably one of the biggest challenges I see for us out there, is tracking the results. How are those credits being used? Here in Kentucky, this next year, we're going to map out how our institutions will report back to the Council on Post-Secondary Education where they used not only military credit recommendations, but civilian credit recommendations too, because we need to prove the case that this is significant and important. CALE has done a lot of research in that area, but we need to do it within our own state boundaries so that we can validate that for further investment to reach out to this population. And then once you get into phase three, there's a 6 to 12 month stabilization period that I recommend between phases 2 and 3 to give your program that time to stabilize and start getting into a rhythm of addressing the needs of credit for prior learning in the way of military community. And then in that evaluation process, it's counting the beans, making sure that you've had people come through the process, you've recognized their learning, you've increased the number, the input and throughput of your veteran population, and then you also take that time to go back and look at some of the lessons learned, reassess, refine your process, continuous improvement so that you can have a better result. And then all of that is said to say it doesn't take a long time to do this. Here's a suggested timeline on how things can progress. You'll see the big gap there between stages 4 and 5. Some of these things are done concurrently, but it's having that plan, that track to run on and being able to implement. All right, I've said a lot. Now it's your turn. You tell me, does this work for you? Is this something you can use? Do you have questions about the different elements?
And I'll also be monitoring the chat. So if you want to put anything in the chat, I can also help Dallas with that as well.
Perfect. Thoughts? Does this work? Can this work?
Initially, how receptive was the faculty at your institution to the whole idea? Like you said, faculty pretty much control the the curriculum. So a lot of times they can be a little bit territorial.
A little bit? Well, that's a nice way to put it. Faculty, once they learn how ACE does the evaluation, they become more accepting of the process. You're not going to get everyone on board. There are some folks who just will not agree to this. And because they see it as either giving away credit, which is not what this is. This is about recognizing learning folks have already done, or they're concerned about their financial security. Are they going to have a job? All right.
Absolutely.
But as I've gone out and done this for about 7 or 8 years now with ACE, Kale, and in Kentucky, people are getting more receptive all the time. As a matter of fact, I've seen COVID really helped move the needle on this because they realized we've got the cliff coming up in 2025 where there will not be enough high school students to meet the needs of workforce in the out years. And we have to tap into this adult population. It's a huge population.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Dallas, I think we had a question in the chat asking about the availability of slides, and I told them that I would ask you to forward the slides to me, and I will make sure we send them out to everyone.
You bet. That sounds perfect.
No problem.
Because these are for you to use. And here's the other thing about this. We're going to put this out on an open source credit for prior learning toolkit that will be sponsored by Dr. Nan Travers from Empire State University. And we need feedback from you all to say, here's what you might want to consider doing. This is how you might be able to add to this. This is what you might want to consider taking away. So you're getting the first look at something on a national level. I've used it for some time now with individual institutions and states. Indiana is using this. Kentucky is using this. And I think Colorado is going to start adopting it at the systems level.
Dallas, we have a question in the chat. The question is, do the schools you have contacted have issues with transferring hours for core degree programs versus elective hours? Do they seem more receptive for elective credit?
And there are. That is a challenge because there's so little guidance out there for how we should use our military credit recommendations. A lot of schools just simply say, yes, we accept ACE credits, but they bring it in as a general credit. It is not even gen ed credit, it's elective credit. But once you start helping them to see how things align, then the faculty get better at this. An example here in Kentucky, which kind of was the foundation for a lot of this work also. We had the veteran services person who, Barbara Kent, she's now at Purdue Global. Allegra tagged her and brought her up to Purdue Global because of the outstanding work that she did at EKU. She sat down with the department chairs and said, hey, there's this program called ACE. Now, this was not her job. She did it on her own as a veteran services person and said, ACE's got credit recommendations in your area for military members, and you really need to look at it and think about it. And then she would turn to me. We did this over a 3-year period, and five or six different times I went up to the university and taught this. So I would go through how ACE does the faculty the evaluation of military learning and workplace on the job training. And after I talked with them, Barbara would slide a book across the table to him, a notebook, and said, "Here are all the credit recommendations for your department. Please look at it and see how you might be able to do this." It went great over that period of time through Barbara's work and the training that we did. They increased their military student population from 1,200 to 1,700 students. Not only that, they have alignments for credit recommendations in the nursing department, in the business department, in criminal justice. And the one that I am just absolutely excited about are the alignments that they did with the IT area. And they identified, the IT department came back and said, "We've identified 27 credit hours that if you've gone to this initial military training, we can apply to your degree to accelerate you through the IT professional bachelor's degree." 27 hours. So it does work once we start helping people to see it.
And we have time for one more question, and then we'll be going on to Indiana Military CPL Framework Solution. This question in the chat, Dr. Kratzer, is: do you have any advice for working within an anti-military culture?
We have many opportunities to share about our military. We're at a time right now where there's a lot less of anti-military culture, but it's always a challenge. And my recommendation is get your military folks together and talk with them and see what's going on their campus. And for folks that are anti-military, a lot of times they misunderstand what the purpose is of our military. And we do a lot of training and development of individuals who come out of the military and are fantastic citizens. So there are a couple documents that you can get, and I'll send them to Alfie, that help you to understand the military culture. But one of the best things of all, there is a free website that's called Psych Armor. And Psych Armor is about helping educators and employers to better understand the military culture. Go there. Take and do the 15 things that military members would like for you to know. And I think that might help you to start breaking some of that ice. All right, Alfie, I've done a lot of talking in a little bit of time. And
I got you.
any questions, you can send them to me and I will be more than happy to address them.
Will do. Hey, we're gonna have to have you back. You just hold on to the seat there.
Yeah.
We're gonna definitely have you back. Thank you so much, Dallas. We appreciate that. And Dallas will be hanging on for a little while for us. And so if you guys want to put anything in the chat, we'll take that opportunity to do now. Without sharing the screen, I'm just going to introduce to you all Jason Jarrett, the Assistant Director of Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships and Veteran Affairs at Ball State University, and Mrs. Allegra Fowler, the Executive Director, Center for Prior Learning Recognition with Purdue Global. Thank you, Jason and Allegra, for joining us. You all should be familiar with Allegra and Jason. They visited us on our earlier stages when we first started this journey with Credit for Mobility, but they're doing some awesome things in Indiana. Indiana is a commission coordinating board, just like we are here in South Carolina. And so I think definitely we have some similarities there, where the information Dallas has shared with us and what Allegra and Jason are going to share are some great things that we can try to adopt in South Carolina. So Jason and Allegra, you guys have the floor. And if you want to share your screen, you can. You have sharing rights.
Thank you very much. My name is Jason Jarrett, and I'm actually on my phone, so I can't share a screen at the moment. I can work on that if you need me to. But I am the Assistant Director for the time being of Veterans Affairs and the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid here at Ball State University in sunny Muncie, Indiana. And Allegra and I, from Purdue Global, of course, we were part of a task force through our Indiana Commission for Higher Education that was looking at education outcomes for veterans as a part of a larger project through our commission and our governor's office, tackling education issues for non-traditional students, including working students, older students, veterans, justice-involved students, and specifically our task force or our work group was tasked with looking at how to improve credit transferring, how to articulations for veterans, for military members at our various institutions across the state of Indiana. We had a small but mighty group of 8, and you can see there, the names and the addresses of the folks in the group. We had a good mix of folks from our education institutions, from our State Department of Veterans Affairs, from local government. And as we got to working, we found that our state was lacking quite a bit when it comes to transparency and uniformity of applying military credits to degree programs across our state institutions. So as we started working, as we started getting deeper into what we're doing across our institutions, we realized that there was a real need for our veterans and our military members to have transparency, to be able to say, I have this occupation, I've got these credits from this branch of the certain military, and I need to know how it's going to work at Ball State, at Indiana, at Purdue, at all these schools, and where will I be when I get to those schools and I start my degree program. So what we did is the slides you're going to see upcoming here is what we presented to our Commission for Higher Education here about in October. These recommendations were accepted. We were basically given carte blanche, give recommendations. We're not the ones responsible for implementation. That goes much higher up the food chain. But the things that we did recommend were well received, and our Commission for Higher Education has picked up the ball, and they're going to start running with it. So to get down to brass tacks, basically our group conceptualized credit for prior learning as being a house, as being a standing structure, a strong structure that is held up by 3 pillars, and those pillars rest upon 2 foundations. The pillars, as Dr. Kratzer said, American Council on Education recommendations is a key part of what we were working on, along with standardization of credit and policies that enable our institutions for higher learning to not only take the lead, but have the ability to standardize and show this data to incoming students so that they can be a more attractive option for these students. So Allegra, I will let you take on the first pillar, the ACE recommendations, and kind of get into what we've come up with.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to spend a little bit of time with you this afternoon, continuing our great conversations about military credit for prior learning and how we can all do better. So as Jason said, we developed this proposal to the state of Indiana's Commission for Higher Education. I think the arrangement is similar to what you all have in South Carolina, where what we were really struggling with were what are the responsibilities that individual institutions should take on, and where does the support come from the state organizing body in terms of making sure that everybody's kind of doing their part? And while we strive towards standardization, also understanding that each institution is different. Each institution is at a different place in terms of the development of their solutions already. And so what we decided to lean on was this good, better, best model, which we borrowed from the American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers. I've seen several of their publications come out with a good, better, best model. The idea is that by doing our recommendations in a series, everyone finds something that might make sense for their institution, because we are not all starting from the exact same place. In that house metaphor that Jason described, we have organized our thoughts around institutional pillars, which would be actions necessary at the school institution level, whereas those foundations are really elements provided and supported by the state. And so the first institutional pillar being those American Council on Education recommendations, ACE recommendations. And what we wanted to outline here is that there's kind of a first step that institutions can strive for, which is that these recommendations are generally kind of tolerated and accepted. But something that Dr. Kratzer got into in his presentation is really this idea that that's not where the story ends, that's where the story starts. So accepting ACE recommendations really isn't doing the whole thing. So what we really try to focus on is that utility element, that these ACE recommendations are not just eligible, but that they're actually being used to advance service members towards the completion of a program through electives, either within their major area or course requirements in their major area that are going to make a difference. And we find that for many institutions, that's really where the challenge begins, as Dr. Kratzer described, working with the academic leadership and faculty teams to get to that utility dimension can be challenging, but that is where we feel the best model is. I'll pass it back to Jason for pillar number 2.
Thank you, Allegra. The second pillar is getting a little bit more closer to brass tacks, as as you can say. This is where the institutions actually make known the military credits to the students, to the incoming students, to other stakeholders that have an interest in the outcomes that these veteran learners may have. Now, my institution, Ball State University, I mean, we're military friendly. We have a strong and thriving veteran population and active duty military population. But right now, we're at the good level. Our data is stored internally. When courses and occupations are reviewed, when JSTs are received, our academic advising unit takes a look and says, this is the credit that you have. Most of it tends to be just general elective credits or PE credits, things that maybe are helpful, but maybe aren't all that great. And maybe the students don't even really understand what they're looking at when they look at this data, when they finally do get their degree audits and they meet with their advisor for the first time. So we really think that it's going to be incumbent on the universities, on our institutions, to really take this to the next step, creating a database, a student-facing database that is very public knowledge, where it shows you have these course credits, you have this occupation, this MOS. These are the credits that you can get for your degree program, how they'll apply, where you will come in, where your standing will be as soon as you set foot on campus for that first time. But we do think our ultimate goal, as far as our work group is concerned, was to create a multi-institution external database that a student can say, hey, I was, 11 Bravo in the Army. I want to attend Ball State. I want to be a criminal justice major. Where are my credits going to land? Well, maybe I don't like that. Maybe I want to attend Indiana University. Maybe I want to attend IUPUI. So ultimately, we're looking at instituting a cumulative and multifaceted, multi-institution external database that can be used for all public-facing students, where they can see what they're going to be getting and how it's going to apply for their degree program. Now, the third pillar, we'll turn it back over to Allegra.
So our third pillar gets a little bit more technical in terms of the administrative at the institutional level, but we do feel like there need to be policies that support what we're doing with the military credit for prior learning space. You all know the tendency of faculty or academic leads to kind of say, well, we can't do that. I work out of the office of the registrar at my university, so I have the pleasure of having owned the catalog. And so I can say, well, just, show me where that rule is that says that we cannot do this. And I would, be happy to talk to you more about these policies. So we really feel like having a policy dimension at the individual institution level is important. Again, on this hierarchy of eligibility, application, and utility, there are sometimes policies that need to be changed in order to allow for that. So sometimes there truly are restrictions that are codified that are going to prevent that application of credit, or are going to narrow the usefulness of that credit for an individual service member. And so part of a fair exercise would be an exploration of your institution's own policies. It can be really good fuel for conversation with detractors or folks who are a little hesitant to make this progress. being an expert in your own existing policies is just, it's great background to have when you do sit down with that individual and you're engaged in a collaborative conversation. And you could say, I actually just took a breeze through our transfer credit or military credit or credit prior learning policies, and I didn't really see this addressed one way or another. Hey, maybe we should make a policy that supports it or advances it, or maybe we're in the position of needing to eliminate a policy that prevents it. But that policy dimension also, I think, resonates very strongly with faculty. I have, for example, brought proposals directly to the faculty senate. I think there was a question earlier about, what do you do when there's this kind of really strong resistance? I have found in my own personal experience that the closer that we can bring those faculty to this world, the instinct might be, no, that they won't like it, keep them away. Let's just tell them that it's all right. I think it's actually the counterpoint. If you bring them close, if you really, really are authentically transparent, I think that can address a lot of concerns, because there really is nothing to hide here. As Dr. Kratzer said, this is credit that these individuals have earned. We are not giving it away. And so from the policy perspective, bringing faculty or administrators on the faculty side into kind of some policy development can be a really, really powerful experience. Again, good, better, best here, but trying to position service members so that they will get an advantage from the credit that they've earned. And then we'll move on to our first state foundation.
So the first foundation, the first level of the foundation, is starting to where the rubber meets the road. This is where we go from talking about abstract policies and talking about good, better, best practices, and this is when we start getting buy-in at the institutional level. And we all know that our institutions, they love having mandates brought down from the state. They love hearing, you need to do this, you need to do this. Well, we know that the institutions bristle at that kind of thing. So the first level is going to be getting buy-in at the leadership from the state, which we have buy-in from our State Commission for Higher Education, our governor's office. Our governor is a veteran himself. He's very keen on veteran education outcomes. But at the leadership level, at the institutional level, that's where we're really going to have to start getting buy-in on, why is this something we need to invest in? Why is this something we need to have time, manpower? Why do we need to spend our already shrinking resources on something like the credit for prior learning? We envision this as leadership meetings at the president level, at the Board of Regents or Board of Trustees level, the provost level, the institutional decision makers, the movers and shakers. They need to buy in. We need to explain how this works for FTEs, for persistence to graduation, for enrollments, and basically good PR. Helping veteran learners is always a winner when it comes to the PR game, to help attract new students as well. Then we bring it down to the faculty level, and Dr. Krasner was very adamant on this, that the faculty need to be driving the bus on the ACE recommendations. They're the ones that understand how their degree programs work, the rigor of their programs. So when we talk to the institutional level, we're talking to the faculty about how they can help standardize the guidelines on reviewing the military credits, how they can get this information from these credits to apply to their degree programs, how they can enhance these degree programs, who they can contact with questions. And then it goes down to the staff level. And this is where folks like I come in our academic advising units and our registrars, applying this credit, how to keep the database updated, be the custodians of the data. So this is a multifaceted implementation process. It starts at the top and it moves its way down, but it's absolutely essential to have buy-in from all parties, or this is something that just will never move forward. Now, there's an even deeper foundation and the final outcome of this, and I'll let Allegra take over from here to talk about the secondary foundation.
So when we went into this work, it quickly became clear that as we are here as Indiana representatives sharing with you in South Carolina, there are states across the country who have done amazing work in this space, and we are standing on their shoulders. But one of the things that we saw as a best practice was the intention to provide a centralized and standardized data resource for students, service members to be able to understand and explore this information on their own terms at their own time. What I want to make a point of emphasis on this slide about is, as a member of several Indiana Commission subcommittees, I know that there is much hesitation anytime the word standardized is said from the state organization out to the schools. Because again, institutional autonomy is paramount in these conversations. So what I've really tried to emphasize in conversations about this is that what we're talking about is individual institutions maintaining their autonomy to make their decisions any way that they want, but that the decisions themselves need to be standard in format so that students are afforded the opportunity to make apples to apples comparisons between credit opportunities between and among different institution opportunities. So if I'm a student, as Jason went through, and I'm exploring my opportunity to bring my military learning into higher education, it seems pretty fair that a student could go look that up and get an upfront, transparent view. The only way that's possible, though, is with data standards. And we feel that that data standard and the organization of the conventions, not the method that we'll use to achieve them, but the conventions of the output of the process is something that we feel is best organized at the state level. Otherwise, we won't be able to get very far in terms of a student being able to make comparisons. If you're not familiar, quick slide that differentiates this. So our commission would develop the data conventions. The institutions make their decisions however they want to. And then the state organization hosts the data, and there becomes this conduit and centralization so that students can make those fair comparisons. This is obviously much, much, much oversimplified, but that's our vision for the future for Indiana, and it is what we presented as a recommendation up. And final point, if you are not familiar with Kansas and their military portal, this is a quick screen grab. You should absolutely go look at it. Not only do they allow you to make those fair comparisons between and among different institutions, they even have an export function for administrators like myself who are curious about the data. They actually allow you to review their equivalency data from other institutions. Again, shine light and myth bust all of this. For people who are skeptical or concerned about the process, let's just shine lights on that. Let's myth bust as much as possible. The Kansas system is an incredible tool for enabling such investigations to be completed. I'll wrap up our prepared presentation here and then turn to questions, just to say that the core of the work that we were doing on this military credit for prior learning task force was to validate the value that military learning brings to higher education from every angle. It's a win-win-win. The service members and veterans win, the institutions win, and industry and workforce win, because we can credential and advance these individuals as we achieve this credit for prior learning magic. We feel that there is a role for both the individual institutions to play, as well as the state organizing agency, to help inch us all forward together so that we don't have to do as much work when we all get there separately, but they can help us move together in concert and achieve a more cohesive system for the students that we are trying to serve. And then, you know, in our presence here coming from Indiana, we simply wanted to make the point that collaboration is key to this, and that collaboration takes a lot of different forms. But the reason that we're here is because we've had such a pleasure engaging with our South Carolina colleagues, and we want to share and we want to learn from you, as Dr. Kratzer ended his presentation with. This whole thing, it is not one person's mission or one school's mission or one state's mission. We can all engage in this work collaboratively, and we think the net result will be more positive. So we were very humbled and grateful for your time today to give us a chance to present our findings.
About that. Thank you so much, Allegra and Jason. I think, you know, with some stuff that's going on in the comments about your great presentations. And I want to give everyone on the call an opportunity to ask Jason and Allegra any questions about what they're doing in Indiana. And I'll be monitoring the chat as well if you would like to put your question in the chat. And Allegra, I think someone was asking me directly, would you share those 5 slides with me? Okay, thank you.
Send those over. Thank you.
Thank you. As you guys are thinking of questions, kind of think about, would this model work in South Carolina, and asking yourself some questions: good, better, best. where does your institution fall in those pillars or that structure of credit prior learning? I think everything that we talked about today, from what Dallas and Allegra is saying, looking at your implementation model and taking that model and then applying it to how do you fall in the structure of CPL for military credit mobility. So those are just some things to kind of think about, because these are questions we're going to be asking you all, utilizing the model and also utilizing the framework. Tim, you have a question, or anyone on the call?
Yeah, actually, I do. My question is either for either one of them. One of the things we've run into is, as we're doing prior credit, we're running into accrediting bodies at the programmatic level not being happy with us or pushing back. AACSB is really strict on upper level business classes. Are you seeing that as well, or any workarounds that you've been getting?
Well, I
Yes.
haven't.
Oh, go ahead.
Ahead. I was going to say, I haven't seen a workaround yet, but AACSB is someone I'm very, very familiar with. I worked in our College of Business for a number of years. We do find that the faculty are the best ones to take over on this question, simply because they're the ones that are working hand in hand with the accrediting body. If anybody has a solution getting around accrediting body, we're all ears. That's something, though, that my office in financial aid just wouldn't have any say in. But Allegra, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, part of what we've done is we have the receipts on the internal governance validated process that we follow. So we try to create a paper trail wherever we go, so that when someone comes to ask questions about what are you guys up to and why does it look this way, we say, well, we met with the faculty senate in May and we discussed this and we got their approval to do it this way. And so having internally approved procedures and support has been an asset to us in those types of conversations, and having faculty champions who are willing to answer that question when someone comes asking. As Jason said, I'm an administrator, I work in the registrar's office, they're not going to ask me. But when I have the dean and the associates dean who know exactly what we're up to and they're in support of this work, they are equipped, then they have the receipts also to answer those questions.
Well, what I'm getting is pushback actually from them saying AACSB is not going to let us do this.
That's
I mean,
interesting, because I've had a chat with them as well, and they weren't opposed to it, but not necessarily in favor of it. Did not see that it would rise to the level of depth, breadth, and rigor. At the same time, what used to be regional accrediting agencies, now it's kind of wide open, wild, wild west. But they are not opposed to it. It
Right.
often is faculty members who say AACSB is not allowing that to happen. And at the upper level, it is a little bit more of a challenge, because that's a significant level of learning, but not impossible. And as a ACE faculty evaluator, there are a lot of opportunities to recognize business, which I do business. I do the leadership and management side. To recognize that, it's getting the faculty to push AACSB to accept that. And Tim, I'd love to talk to you offline about that, because if you've got a name, I'd love to talk to him. I've tried. The one person I talked to, she'd been with the organization 13 years and said, yeah, we allow it. It's just not a common practice. So
I think that'd be helpful. Just piggybacking off of Tim, I'm at Winthrop as well. We've been limited in being able to do a lot, and especially when it comes to partnerships like this with other programs on campus, and having something as simple as a title that says leadership, even though they're not going to be reviewed within, the AACSB and their parameters. But yeah, so we would need help with that, because in this case, it's not the faculty.
Jessica Bridges is back to her office to share.
All right. If you guys have any additional questions, Allegra, I think there's a question in the chat, and we want to make sure we give an opportunity to share some best practices. But I think someone's asking a question about equating occupations as block versus equating individual experiences course by course. What are your thoughts on each approach? If you feel like you can answer that through the chat, if not, we do have an open question at the discussion towards the end. I just want to make sure we give everyone an opportunity for the best practices.
I'd say hold so we can discuss.
Okay, all right, cool. So we can be on, we're still on time with everything, and we're just gonna go in order. We're gonna be sharing best practice. This is how we do it. And we're going to go in order with Lander University, and then after Lander, we'll have the Technical College of the Low Country. I know some of you may have to jump off exactly at 3 o'clock. I'll just ask you to give a little grace to 3:15. I'm following the orders that we can make sure we cover everything that we have today. So I'm going to lean over to Lander University. We have Mr. Brandon Felder, he's the registrar there, and Ms. Marina Proctor, coordinator of course articulation and transfer. We asked for them to kind of share what their best practices are and things they have been doing at Lander University. So Brandon and Marina, I'm going to hand things off to you all.
Hey everybody. So I'm going to kind of drive this because I work directly with this every day. But Alfie asked us to share kind of what we're doing because we've seen a lot of success in reevaluating credit that we've been bringing in for years, and we're reevaluating it with faculty that does understand. Everybody's been saying ACE, but we've always said ACE, so I guess I'll just keep saying that. So I was going to explain kind of our transfer articulation process here, because I do think it makes a big difference on the way that you look at it. So when we look at a military experience credit or the JST like we would any college transcript coming in, so it's received in our admissions office and then it comes to us for evaluation in the registrar's office. We have two people, so we have a transfer analyst that actually does the evaluation of the transcript. Anytime we have something that we don't have an equivalency for, we put in like a placeholder course that populates on a report. And that's what I do. I run those reports. And then we have a lot of faculty members, department chairs that I send course descriptions from the course that we haven't had before to them for, to get their expertise and what it should transfer as. So what we've been doing with military credit is, even if we just got it last year, since people are more knowledgeable about the ACE recommendations now, I've just resent them, and we actually do it by the each individual course. So we code military experience credit as a college, and then the ACE indicator is the course. We use the branch as the subject, and then the course number is that long number. I pull the ACE recommendations from the website and I create a spreadsheet for each student, and it has the current credit that they're receiving for all the courses that they've taken, and then new recommendations. Some of them are, the same, but most of the time, there's updates. And since we've done that, since we've been updating them, it's a less cumbersome process because we've already done that, gotten that equivalency. So when we do it again, we don't have to reevaluate it. So now I'm seeing that, we might only have one or two that need to be reevaluated. I think some colleges probably struggle with not having the person to get these updated recommendations. And I think it just depends on how your university is set up. We use Banner. So that is what's worked really well for us. And for degree applicable credit, so you have to have 120 hours for your bachelor's degree. So although it might not be explicit, like 300, 400 level credit, they are receiving credit that is beneficial for them and that they need to complete their degree. So we actually had a student that is a current student, and he had an overload of classes that he was going to have to take to graduate in the spring. Well, we evaluated his JST, 3 years ago. So we reevaluated it, and we were able to award him more credit. So he was able to drop courses and have a more manageable course load and graduate, because he didn't need those credit hours. We also have processes in place to where even if it's not awarded on a case-by-case basis, sometimes we can, if they go to the departments, they can provide additional documentation and they can get, certain things waived depending on their major. So I did one today. It was for the emergency management master's degree. They were bringing in, they were able to waive 2 of their courses because they had this, prior experience on their JST. Now, this was an upper level service member, so we don't have a ton of people with that credit coming in. So that one was a case-by-case basis. But if we have someone coming in the future with that, that's something we could look at. But it would really just depend on their major. We can't give them nursing credit if they were, did IT in the service. It's, you can give them some elective credit, which they need to get that 120 credit hours, but, we can't give them nursing credit. But we look at it all as, this is degree applicable because everyone needs the 120 credit hours. So that's what we've been doing. We've seen a lot of success with it. And I think, like everyone has said, having the faculty support and having someone that really understands what ACE recommendations are, and that they are legitimate. It is okay, so we accept, ACE recommendations for any other learning service. So why not military? So we've just started to the process of updating it all. And it's, a much more cohesive process now. So if it's older, like if we haven't received that credit in the past year, I'm resending it to get it reevaluated, because I don't think it hurts to have it updated. Even if we, just got it a year ago, you have a different, someone that's understands these recommendations a lot more than someone that just did it. So that's just what we're doing. We're seeing a lot of success with it. And our service members have been really happy with it. But yeah.
Thank you so much, Marina. I saw a lot of head nodding in there. So there's some comments in the chat if you guys have an opportunity to check that out. Chrissy, I just want you and Brandon, you guys can piggyback, but I do want to give Chrissy from TCL, the Technical College of the Low Country, to kind of share, this is how we do it at TCL. So Chrissy.
I'm going to shamelessly give thumbs up to Lander because they have an articulation agreement with us, and we have a paralegal program with them. So a lot of stuff they're saying is things that we do because we understand the transfer articulation extremely well. So thank you guys so much for giving me a few moments of your time. So we have been making this policy change and adjustments. I think my registrar is on here. Dr. Barbara's, I think, somewhere in this sea of people. So I handle the JSTs, which is a little bit different. The registrar's office receives them, they come to me, and then I do all the legwork for her to make it a little bit easier, because I know what a JST is. I read it. I'm prior Navy. I can explain it to my faculty. And I use the ACE military guide, kind of this is what she was saying, that we actually use ACE military guide, put the JST in now, and it spits out saying, hey, they were used a rubric, they were given an assessment, they had to write an essay. So it goes directly to my professors now, and I'm like, hey, here you go. And if they have questions, and again, this is shameless, I am so sorry, but I am faculty. And so I teach psychology, so I'm able to explain this to faculty, which now I have like 8 faculty members that call me and like, hey, how do I evaluate this? I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to give public speaking credit. And we do give a lot of public speaking credit. Why have someone that has been a recruiter take a public speaking class? That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But we have them evaluated, they go over, and there's been a couple of times that we've had someone come in and they're like, ooh, this looks so close. And I don't know if Alfie will let me show my screen real quick.
You can.
There's no names on here. I just want to show, if anybody has not seen what it looks like for workflow, what our workflow looks like. Awesome. ACE Military Guide. So this is kind of what it looks at. I upload a JST and I award drafting. So I'm going to click on this. This one's under final supervision. But it lists their occupation and their courses. I'm just going to pick one so you can kind of see. This is what my faculty can see. What the course is, what I'm recommending for hours, and how they were assessed, and what they were given instruction. And so my cybersecurity folks went and said, this is what we want to give them, these credit hours. And so let me go back to my workflow. That has been reviewed by faculty and is under final approval with my dean. So my dean goes back, looks over and says, yep, I agree with you. It gets officially approved. From there, I'm gonna stop screening. From there, what we do is it comes back to me. I call the student and say, what do you want for credit? Because we know we have SAP, and just like she said, the 120 hours for a bachelor's degree, we don't want them to go over their numbers. And if it's not going to be useful for them, they don't have to use it, because we have a lot of corpsmen. I live in corpsman land, and medics over here. So Bio 112, we actually give them Bio 112. So they get a basic anatomy and physiology class if they have completed core school in 1 year. So that's kind of how we do it. Again, I am shameless. I will walk up to my faculty and be, hey, that's been under review for a little while. What you got? You know, and I'm much smaller than Lander. I'm a community college, but I have a ton of programs. But I want to shout out to Lander because I love you guys. I do send a lot of paralegals your way, and my military absolutely love working with them. USC is another great one, but I bring up Lander because we have that articulation agreement. Big hugs. We're working on some more.
If I could just jump in for a minute, Chrissy, would you bring that back up for just a moment?
Sure.
I want to make this point. This is a free tool available through the ACE installations page on the guide. You can compare what you've done with other schools by looking into this. So this is a great tool. This is what Indiana is adopting as they expand their military credit for prior learning across the state. So then you can see what others are doing. I commend you greatly for doing this. And it's a fantastic work. Okay, if you, click on the arrow there under PIC. See the little check mark?
This one?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. This one. Yeah.
This is how you can see what other schools are doing and how they're awarding that credit. So this is a great way that South Carolina, and you are leading the way here if no one else is doing it, to share information. I'm going to stop there. There's so much more I'd love to say about it, but
oh wow, that is awesome. Thank you so much. It was the chat was going. So when you guys get a chance, make sure you go to the chat as well with the link to the ACE military guide. Chrissy and Brandon and Marina, thank you guys so much for sharing that information with us and those best practices. So we're going to be looking for more of you to share some best practices that you're doing at your institutions, because I had some feedback that folks are tired of hearing from me and they want to hear from you guys. So I'm going to be asking for more assistance and guidance from you guys in reference to best practices. I'm just going to kind of go real quickly because I want to be conscientious of your time. These are just some updates on recommendations and responses for our last call to action poll. These are just a couple things that you all have mentioned that you want to find direct equivalencies versus electives. You want more training on credit for prior learning. An example framework or how to evaluate military courses, maybe a template. Looking at common ACE courses accepted by other institutions, and also courses taught at the military installations. We have an update for you guys, and also looking at the top degree programs for military, top degree programs for the military and veterans that may be attending our institution, and some other recommendations. So very quickly, I'm going to show you guys, and I'm going to zip through this, but I will be sharing the slide. But from one of our last polls, we actually asked each institution to provide to us a snapshot of just a couple of the ACE courses that you all are accepting at your institutions. We are gathering this information, and at our next meeting, we'll go more in depthly into this. But this is just an opportunity for you all to see that there are some commonalities amongst your institutions, from what is the direct equivalent at your institution. If you saw this ACE course for structured self-development, there is one institution in our state at Central Carolina, they're accepting this course for Management 150. Are there any other institutions that can accept this business course as a credit course versus elective? So those are just some thoughts for you guys to think about as we are moving forward, looking at direct equivalencies versus electives. The next slide I want to kind of share with you all, and I'm gonna let my colleague and counterpart, Gina from Sabanya from Minnesota, she's gonna very briefly kind of look at, as you all know, South Carolina has 9 installations in the state and about 56,000 service members and veterans in the state. And so Gina, I'm gonna let you real quickly cover that.
Thanks, Elfie.
You're
My name is
welcome.
Gina Savanya, and I'm the Director of Military, Veteran, and Adult Learner Services at the Minnesota State System. Been doing this work for about 16 years and sharing our practices with many, many other states that are on the call. So when we began our process in Minnesota, we started looking at military occupations. And there's a little bit of a conundrum with military occupations because they began at a certain rank. So you have to be an E4 within the Navy and the Coast Guard to have recommendations for your occupation, and an E6 in the Marine Corps and the Army, which takes individuals years to get to that rank. We began with occupations. I wish in Minnesota we would have began with courses. So the work that I'm doing with Elfie right now is the previous slide, it showed those installations within South Carolina. Instead of focusing solely on the military occupation, we're kind of going backwards and finding the course that the service member had to take to be awarded that military occupation. So as you can see, I'm going to skip over the basic imagery because we can't find that. And I have not served in the military, so I don't have the expertise or the knowledge within the certain branches. But we're looking at the course. The course applies to all individuals that have taken the course, and it is on their JST transcript. So, for example, the hospital corpsman basic, we're not looking at the occupation, which will begin at an E4. I believe sometimes there's a corpsman that begins at an E3, but we're looking at the course the sailor needed to take to be awarded that occupation. Same with the human resource specialist. We're not going to look at the MOS 42 Alpha human resource specialist. We're going to look at the course that the service member took and had to pass. And why this is important maybe for South Carolina, and I know going back for us in Minnesota, it applies, as I said, probably multiple times, it applies to the service member regardless of the rank. So you're more likely to be able to award more credit than if they're only looking at their military occupation. So I'm doing some work with Elfie to get those installations in South Carolina and the courses that the service member had to take to be in that military occupation. So that's what I'm helping Elfie with. If you have any questions, I'll put my email address in the chat. Thanks,
Thank
Elfie.
you. Thank you, Gina. And we're going to go more in depth with this at our next meeting in March. So if you have any questions, and I think Dallas put some information in the chat as well. So our next thing that I just want to very briefly share with you guys are just some information about the enlisted personnel by occupational group and branches. This information was provided by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And I think the interesting thing to look at is that what are the top occupations that enlisted personnel are in. And within the top occupations, we see IT is very driven with engineering. So all of our institutions with the engineering business is high on the list, as well as nursing, criminal justice, and computer science and psychology. Then the interesting thing I wanted to bring to your attention, at one earlier on survey that we did early when we started the task force, we asked each institution what degrees are being attained by the military veteran students at your institution. The 5 top degree programs were business, criminal justice, nursing, biology, computer science, psychology, and social work. Just put this in the parking lot. This could be an opportunity for us to look at some commonalities amongst the state of some of the common degree programs, and possibly look at equivalencies that if you're giving credit for these service members from off of their JST, are there any commonalities amongst these degree programs? So just kind of keep that as a thought. Vanessa, I see that you got your hand raised. Did you have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I wanted to ask the other schools who are on the call, 4-year institutions, if they're able to accept anything, any business credit, higher level business credit. If you're an AACSB school, have you had any trouble, or are you able to accept any credit for upper level military? No.
Hey,
Hi,
we do at Lander.
You do at Lander, you're able to accept credit?
There's an HR class that I know we've accepted credit for before.
Okay. For an upper level, and y'all are AACSB accredited?
That's right.
Okay.
And Brandon, share that and put it in the chat. And I think Dr. Drew is there too from the Citadel.
Yeah, at the Citadel, we do try to do that, but we're looking for the credit to come in from an AACSB accredited school.
Okay.
And I don't know how much we focus on that, but we do allow credit, or try to allow credit for upper division courses taken elsewhere to come in for our upper division courses. What we don't do is allow lower division courses to count for our upper division courses for obvious reasons.
Okay, but what about military specific credit? Like if you're looking at an MOS, or let me do
I see the difference in the question. I don't think we've pre-approved anything yet that we broadly communicate, but there might be something in the management area. We have a course in leadership, so that might be covered by certain military experiences.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Keith Garvin at the Citadel. Typically what we will do is the credit will come in as a general elective, and if the department, whether it's business or outside of business, mostly Intel, will look at the content of the JST transcript and determine if it will come in as an upper level elective. But it's usually substituted in rather than a course by course.
Okay. Do you mind if I grab your emails and email you about it? Because we've been struggling. But it maybe we're not reading the policy right. Or something we're not considering.
And I think Vanessa, also Carol, what institution are you from, Carol? I think Carol Griffin, and we'll be able to share this information.
Okay, sorry, I was muted.
That's okay.
Yes, I'm from Limestone University.
That's right.
And we have the ACBSB accreditation for our business.
Okay.
All right, so I think the common knowledge and direction is really there to find some commonality. So thank you guys so much for sharing. Vanessa, I'll make sure that everybody gets everyone's contact information, but this is just a thought for you all to look at as a possibility, what the top degree programs are in South Carolina. I'm going to be conscientious of time. I'm going to skip over a couple things and just go to some updates for you all. One in particularly, we are looking at doing a convening. We asked all of you all for your feedback of when would it be a good time to do an in-person training. We have realized that a lot of you all are interested in having training or faculty and staff training. So one of the things I'm going to propose to you all, start thinking about who those individuals you think that are on your campuses, and that would be good advocates or good individuals to come to our upcoming training. We are looking at having this training in September, between the 2nd and 4th week of September. The dates will be finalized fairly soon, and we will give that information so you all can plan your fall calendars out, but just kind of put a pin or in for the month of September into for your calendars, but we'll be sharing that information with you all as well. The last couple things I wanted to share, we got your feedback about a standing meeting, and we will be meeting again next month, in the month of March the 27th, and we will try to have a standing meeting the 4th Wednesday of each month. We will be asking institutions to come on board to say this is how we do it. So we will be asking additional institutions to come and share what their best practices are. So be on the lookout for that. And I will be forwarding to you all the calendar invite for March 27th, as well as any additional updates. I do want to ask if you all have any additional questions. I know there was a question in the chat for Allegra, and I know most of you may have to join to jump off, but if you all have any other additional questions for Lander, Dr. Kratzer, Allegra, or Jason, I do want to give you all the opportunity that are still on the call. And I don't want you to feel rushed if you have the time, but if you wanted to ask additional questions from our guests.
And that's you're doing that. I do want to take the opportunity to thank Gina Stobania. It's so nice to have you as part of us. We feel like you're part of South Carolina now.
Yes.
From Minnesota. So we want to thank you. And also, Chrissy, thank you so much. And Brandon and Maria from Lander, we certainly appreciate talking with you again. We've been doing road shows, and again, these are great standouts, and we look forward to our this is how we do it sessions to share. I think the richness of all of this is in the sharing and the partnership. So I'm so enthusiastic about how we're moving on. Allegra and Jason, as always, we always learn. So thank you so much. Every time we talk with you, we learn something new. And we look at, of course, alignment with our state. So this was very helpful. Dallas had to, of course, drop off, he stated, but I want to extend our thanks to Dallas as well. We met him at the Cal conference, and again, he shared so much, a wealth of information that he continues to want to share again with South Carolina. With that, we'll stay on the line. I want to thank everyone again for joining us. We'll stay on the line for any additional questions. We look forward to seeing you on the 27th. And if you have any other issues, concerns as we walk down this path, if you could please let me or Alfie know. And Alfie, thank you for facilitating this today. Thank you, everyone.
And I think there was one question in the chat for Allegra. Allegra, the question was equating occupations as a block versus equating individual experience course by course. What are your thoughts on each approach? And this could be open, for anyone that's on the call as well.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So my recommendation actually is going to lean on some of the observations that our colleagues at Lander made, which is we tend to explore the credit in terms of an entire occupation area. So if we're working, for example, with the Army branch, if we are, we try to explore the entire suite of courses and experiences that would be related to that particular occupation. So if you're familiar with the typical Army progression in an occupation area, we would expect them to have their advanced individualized training, AIT. We would expect to see the advanced leader course, the ALC, and the senior leader course, SLC, which would be the courses that you expect to see in their occupation progression, as well as the occupation credit at ranks progressing from 10 to 50 or 60, depending on the occupation. We explore the entire area, but we do create the equivalencies at the individual learning object level. And as our colleagues from Lander mentioned, sometimes students cycle another transcript back through. And so, for example, if the student sends you a transcript and they're a skill level 30 in their Army progression and you award them the credit, but then while they're going to school with you, they're advancing in their military career, or maybe they take a break from your institution and they come back 2 years later and now their skill level is different. We find that actually giving them the credit as the individual pieces allows any future manipulations to be done without disrupting or needing to kind of take out components of their record. So if you give them the equivalent credit all as this whole package, you're kind of locked into that, both from a data management perspective as well as from a student application perspective. And on the data side, it's even worse because, as you know, we're talking about ACE recommendations which come with a timeline, and the timelines are not synchronized across the entire occupation area. So if you're in the 42 Alpha Human Resources Specialist area, each course might move or change at a different date, and you have to kind of create that whole object all over again anytime one component of it changes. So we've found it to be more efficient and more practical to explore according to the entire area, but to track and apply at the individual item level so we don't have to do as much rework. And Erin, I hope that answers the question, but that's kind of our frame of thinking.
That is very helpful. I completely understand. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's grace and patience as we finish out today. If you need anything from us, this is our contact information. We would like to thank and continue our partnership with the Department of Veteran Affairs, also with the technical colleges, with Ms. Black, and also Dr. Jeff Perez with the South Carolina Independent Colleges. We look forward to seeing you guys next month. We got some great things coming in the month of March. Look forward to seeing you guys soon, and you all have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you to all of our guest speakers. Yes, of course.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Really, it's a request for the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
One of the things we discovered was that Clemson and USC got together and came up with a policy for the technical colleges transferring to their 2 4-year colleges. And then the Citadel joined in with that agreement. Do we know if there's any discussion at the president's level about this that we should be aware of that may impact this discussion? And maybe some schools like USC and Clemson are already doing something or getting ready to do something that we can join in, because I know our president joined in with the last thing that came through.
I'll lean that over to Dr. Woolfolk.
Sure. We do know that there is, and you might want to note that there is a lean into an agreement. We haven't seen the actual agreement yet, but we did receive a letter at CHE from Francis Marion on behalf of the comprehensive institutions for to align themselves with a transfer agreement that was established by between the technical colleges, Clemson University, and the research institutions. So the comprehensive institutions, including the Citadel, have stated that they are in agreement with the existing agreement regarding transfer. Now, how that aligns itself with military credit transfer is yet to be seen, but we did receive a letter stating that there is an agreement among the comprehensives to align with the research and the technical colleges in an overall agreement about transfer. However, I do want you to stay tuned to a couple of, let's see if I can pull them up, a couple of pieces of legislation that's going through right now. They're proposed legislation pieces that would allow for an agreement of transfer or military credit transfer. Alfie, you might be able to pull that up quicker than I can walk across the room to get it.
Okay.
I wanted to give everybody the opportunity to see that proposed legislation that would allow for military credit mobility and policy that would be an agreement upon, if of course the bill is passed, for the technical colleges to have a transfer mobility of these credits for credentialing as well as for academic credit. Thank you, Alfie. Here's the bill. So to answer your question about the alignment that we were talking about today, not transfer, which we're all aware of, but of this specific one, I believe this bill, if you pull it up a little bit, we can give everybody the actual. Alfie, if you can pull it the other way, I want to give everybody that number. I don't know if it has the number on there. This is a bill that would allow for the technical colleges to create transfer policies for from military credit to, again, to academic credit for certification purposes, and then also for, of course, course by course transfer. So if you would look at hold on for a second. If I can find one. I want to give you the number of that particular one. Hold for a minute. I know it's up here. You can look it up to see if you can ask your governmental affairs officers about the progress of this particular one. If you hold for a moment, I'll get you that number.
Thank you.
Great question, Kevin. I was gonna let you all ask questions before I say anything. And this just gives everyone an opportunity to read over this if you have a chance.
I'm sorry it's taking so long. There's so many bills going through at the last moment here, but I'll get it.
Dr. Wolford, would you like me to stop sharing?
Oh, yeah. If you want, that would be fine.
Okay. I just want to give folks an opportunity to read the bill if they wanted to.
Absolutely. And I'll see if I can find the bill numbers, which are always important.
Yes, ma'am. I did not see a number on the attachment that we got today.
Right. Should be a number on here that is so important. Let's see. And feel free to ask other questions while I'm going through the military bill. Let's see if I can find that. Okay, let's see. Might be two bills, as a matter of fact. Well, there's another way to do this. Go to the State House.
So as Dr. Wolford is looking at I think this is definitely a great opportunity for South Carolina. So just kind of be thinking about.
Oops, sorry.
Go ahead, Keith. Go ahead.
I think it's Bill 5105.
That looks like, and there's another one too. There's so
5104.
It might be. I wanted to actually send you the actual bills here. This is the latest, as Alfie has it on the screen. 5105. That's right. And there's an accompanying bill that goes with that.
I think it was 5104.
4, right.
Yes, ma'am. You want me to stop sharing, Dr. Wolford?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
This is the latest that was shared with our governmental affairs officer, but 5105 and 5104.
Okay, thank you.
And if you can ask your governmental affairs officers about that, they could probably give a better update, since they're there all the time across the street, about the progress of those two. But that's simply among the technical colleges. And we're excited about it. But we of course would like to see if there's movement for the 4-year institutions as well. And that might be a little different, we know, but we're watching that one going through.
Great question, Keith. Does anybody else have any other questions about the bill or some upcoming legislation? We just want to thank everyone for their time. I know we're past our time already, but I want to thank everybody for staying on a little bit longer. That was a great question. And as I said, this recording will be sent out to everyone. Again, thank you to all of our speakers, and Dr. Wolf, for any closing remarks.
Oh, I just want to thank everyone for their afternoon, and thank you so much, Alfie, for facilitating. And again, thanks for Allegra, you're still on. We so appreciate you and what you're doing along with Jason. And thank you everyone for joining us. We look forward to next month's meeting. And if you have any questions between, please let us know. And we'd like for our team here, our group among us, all of us, to help in the facilitation. So if you have some suggestions as we move forward, we welcome those. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Hey, Alfie, if we're using the